Ramona Mar.
And I'm Wayne Cousins.
This week on World Stage 86, folding boats and robot spiders. Innovative BC ideas at Expo.
The Flying Seven, a remarkable story about 7 Vancouver women who formed a flying team in the 1930s.
We'll talk with foreign journalists in town for a preview of Expo.
And we'll have another edition of Expo Guide.
3 weeks ago in this program, Bill Dobson took us inside the BC Pavilion at Expo. It was very exciting. But now he tells us that was only half the story.
As we told you a few weeks ago, British Columbia's Pavilion of Discovery is the place where you'll see vistas and parts of British Columbia that you couldn't see anyplace else. But the government has much more on this complex. Directly across the Plaza of Nations, there's a whole new pavilion. It's called Challenge BC, and it will be a showcase of industry. You won't really be in danger of being struck by falling trees, but you will get to see what goes on in BC's exciting industries. I toured the pavilion with Rod Cameron, the head of public relations. We first went into an area that was beginning to look a bit silly, and that's what it's supposed to do.
The actual exhibits in the gallery are by a number of British Columbia artists who have done work to show the whimsical side, the amusing side, some of the stereotypes perhaps that are associated with traditional BC industries. What you were looking at there was a John Gilbert sculpture, and John, of course, is very renowned for his mobiles that not only have their own sculptural quality, but actually have movement and activity to tell the story that they have.
When I'm talking about my work, it's fun. And it makes a point.
Patrick Amio, who is a very, very well-known sculptor locally here, has put his talents to work for us as well. And he's developed a giant sculpture that shows all different aspects of BC industry working together. I think that that's going to be one of the most amusing exhibits. People will be able to look at that one sculpture for a half an hour and still never see everything that's on it.
My basic subjects are just about everything, which means I can touch just about everybody. Just a simple, naive expression of ordinary things in life.
Right next door, we walked into a warehouse full of great big crates.
In fact, the crates are filled with some surprises in the form of animated characters who participate in a stage show dealing with British Columbia products. We're not revealing a lot about the show right at the moment because we think it's going to be a very, very successful one and something that may be the sleeper of the entire Expo site. The theater in the Challenge building tells the story of British Columbia industry, but again, we were looking for an unusual and effective way to tell that story, and we've developed a film in a format known as Trimax. The story itself has to do with looking at activities, industrial and leisure activities throughout British Columbia.
BC has the host pavilion for Expo 86, and its creators believe they've got a winner. From the BC Pavilion for World Stage 86, I'm Bill Dobson.
The sight of a woman at the controls of an airplane is hardly cause for attention these days. But in the 1930s, it raised a few eyebrows. Here's Ramona.
Nowadays, jets like these can take us from here to there without much fuss, but it hasn't always been this way. It's hard to believe that just 50, 60 years ago, aviation was barely off the ground. Remember those magnificent men in their flying machines? Well, Vancouver had its own magnificent women in their flying machines. In the late 1920s and early 30s, 7 women who shared a fascination with flying became known as the Flying Seven. Jean Pike, Tosca Trasolini, Betsy Flaherty, Alma Gilbert, Eliane Roberge, Margaret Fain, and Rolly Moore. The Flying Seven jumped at every opportunity to get into the air. They'd work for the Aero Club in exchange for flying time. They'd work for small airplane companies in exchange for flying time. And they were as familiar with Vancouver from the air as they were on the ground. Margaret Rutledge was Margaret Fain at the time. In retrospect, the adventures of the Flying Seven were commonplace.
I don't know, that's what we wanted to do. Our brothers and sisters did other things. My sister rode a horse, and I flew an airplane, and nobody thought anything of it. In fact, I think my parents were more worried about her than they were about me, because she used to get thrown once in a while.
Now, you seven really wanted to get involved in the war effort. What happened there?
It was a little too early. The Air Force didn't, at that time, they didn't have any facilities for taking women into the Air Force. And so we started a ground school.
That school gave women basic training in things like how to pack a parachute and how to mend fabric on airplane wings. And of course, there were trophies created for awarding proficiency in flying and for accuracy in bombing practice when the club used bags of flour to hit their targets. Needless to say, the Flying Seven had quite the profile. They sported their own uniforms, of which only remnants are left today. Rolly Moore even gained notoriety as a stunt flyer. The women were licensed to fly privately, a few of them commercially. A sign of the times, their licenses read, "Permission to operate a flying machine." In the 30s, instrument panels were pretty simple, and as the saying goes, you flew by the seat of your pants. That's the way Margaret likes it.
Every time I go to Delta Air Park and I see those little aircraft, but I'm not too fussy about the big ones. They're just a place to go and get in and go if you want to go somewhere.
As modest as she is about her part in the flying machine era, Margaret Rutledge agrees that she wouldn't have traded it for the world. For World Stage 86, I'm Ramona Mar.
Still ahead on World Stage, information on how to get information this week on Expo Guide. And the robot spiders are coming to Expo.
There are over 100 automobile dealerships in Greater Vancouver. Only 4 have been chosen by the Ford Motor Company.
The subject of necking in cars came up in Vancouver as early as 1920. The city fathers said that year, the practice of courting in automobiles has got to cease or it will land the offenders in court. It's believed the city fathers were acting on the instructions of the city mothers. Meanwhile, one man, described as a gay Lothario, said he could drive more safely in a compromising attitude. In his words, more waste, less speed.
If you're going to Expo, this will help. It's our new information feature called Expo Guide.
For you and your family to get the most out of Expo, you'll probably want to gather as much information as you can before the fair, and there's plenty available, just by phoning or writing Expo. This pamphlet, Show Guide, will give you a comprehensive description of all the entertainment at the fair. Theater, cabaret, movies, music of every kind, puppets, magic, and lots of big-name entertainers, too. More than 14,000 performances in all. Show Guide unfolds to show you a complete calendar of entertainment events and national days throughout the 5.5-month Expo season. That's Show Guide. This booklet is more specific. It focuses on the spectacular program of theater, music, and dance called the World Festival. It's a real cultural feast. The booklet also contains complete ticketing information for the festival. This brochure is about the Canada Pavilion. It doesn't go into a lot of detail, but it does give you some of the flavor of what to expect when you go under the sails of that amazing building. You can get hold of any of the material I've mentioned so far, and a lot more too, by writing to this address, Expo Info, Post Office Box 1800, Vancouver, BC, V6C 3A2. They can also answer any questions you may have about the World's Fair. If you prefer, you can telephone. This is the number, 604-660-EXPO. That's 604-660-EXPO. The best and most complete information guide to Expo 86 will be the official souvenir guide. It's not published yet, but we're guessing it will look something like this. It will contain a complete overview of the site, the pavilions, the restaurants, and the rides and the events, with lots of maps, diagrams, and helpful information about the fair. When it's published, and we're told that will be in early March, it will be available at newsstands across the country. It's in full color, 142 pages long, and the price is $5. If you have a personal computer in your home or office, there's another way to get Expo information. As long as you have a modem to hook your computer to your telephone, you can dial right into the Expo 86 information system. The most up-to-date material will appear on your own screen at home, and you can select the topic you want information about. This is the number to dial, 604-668-6497. And welcome to the information age. Even if you don't have a computer, your TV set is now a good source of Expo information. Detailed information on the fair is now being telecast 24 hours a day on cable Channel 2 throughout Greater Vancouver. Beginning tomorrow, the Knowledge Network will offer the same service to the whole province every night from 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. the following morning. As you can see, there are plenty of ways to get information to help you and your family plan a successful and happy trip to Expo. And if you give us a moment just to blow our own horn, we'd like to think that one of your best sources of good information is this program. And that's Expo Guide.
There's a popular notion that native-born Vancouverites are hard to find, that most people came from somewhere else. Not true, of course. There are plenty of both kinds. But it is true that transplants often have vivid memories of how they discovered this city and made it their own. One of them is our guest this week on My Vancouver. He's well-known Vancouver broadcaster Mike Winlaw.
Now, the first day that I drove through Stanley Park, the weather was not the way it is today. It was a beautiful, typical spring Vancouver day. It was about 50 degrees. Birds were singing, grass was green, and all those things. And I'd left Edmonton, where it was 30 degrees below, and the winds were out of the northwest at about 25 to 30. And as I drove along here and saw this beautiful, huge park in the heart of the city, I looked out across the Royal Vancouver Yacht Club and saw all the little sailboats there and the city skyline, and I thought, this is the place for me, no doubt about it. I spent a lot of time here at Prospect Point watching some of the ships come in from countries all over the world, and looking across and discovering the North Shore for the first time, seeing the snow on Grouse Mountain and thinking that looks like a pretty good spot to live. But another major adjustment here on the West Coast was getting used to carrying an umbrella, because if you were a man and you carried an umbrella on the prairies, you had better be prepared to defend yourself. Driving by Lost Lagoon was really something because of all the wildlife, the squirrels and all the birds out there. On the prairies, everything was hibernating, or if they had any sense, they'd probably flown south for the winter. But here you had squirrels running around, you had all kinds of birds, and I think especially the Canada geese, because on the prairies they were a very elusive bird. You couldn't get anywhere near a Canada goose on the prairies, but here people were feeding them by hand. And I think by the time I started feeding the Canada geese by hand, Vancouver was home.
Expo 86 will be a showcase for new technologies from around the globe, but some of the most innovative will come from right here in BC. You're about to see 3 of them, including a boat that unfolds, some robot spiders, and a car that gets 170 miles to the gallon. Ken Cathcart starts us off.
For Horseshoe Bay boat designer and builder Trevor Kirby, Expo 86 will be a golden opportunity to show off his clamshell. He's been invited to demonstrate the semi-rigid folding inflatable during the search and rescue period of Expo in May. It's a chance for Kirby's innovation to be seen and tried by marine safety specialists from the world over.
No other boat, no other semi-rigid that folds in the world, as far as I know. This has got world patents out. See, before all they had was a container for life rafts and so on. They had a container, fiberglass container with the life raft, the boat inside, and you simply throw that away. I said, well, why throw it away? Why not use that container as the hull? And hence we have the clamshell.
The Clamshell Mark II is the result of recommendations from the Canadian Coast Guard.
They had it for 3 months. They capsized it, they folded it, they unfolded it, they powered it, and obviously tried getting people, they ran it totally flooded and getting people on board and so on. This was the Mark I.
At Coast Guard's suggestion, Kirby built a larger craft, installed a locking device on the hull, and improved the automatic inflation system. So after 3 years of development, a BC innovator's dream for worldwide acceptance of his folding inflatable boat could pay off, thanks to Expo.
Here in sunny, calm, and quiet Sydney on Vancouver Island lives some of Hollywood's most bloodthirsty mechanical creatures. I'm talking about the robotic spiders seen in the Tom Selleck movie Runaway, filmed a few years ago in Vancouver. The spiders were invented right here at Robotic Systems International. But the transformation that turned them into horrifying little murderers happened in Hollywood. In Runaway, the spiders were programmed to inject deadly acid into their victims. As terrifying as they were, the spiders stole the show. In reality, the spiders are nothing more than harmless remote-controlled toys made by Jack Wilson and his staff at Robotic Systems International in Sydney. While most of the spiders were sold to the movie makers, 2 of them are on display at the Design 2000 exhibit at the Expo Center.
I consider us to be a very serious robot company, but we keep getting opportunities to turn out some type of what we call entertainment robots for movies and displays. And as long as the world comes to us and asks for that type of entertainment robotics, we're here, we have a lot of fun, we like to make them.
Despite the movie exposure, the firm is building a reputation for designing manipulator arms. Some of those are on display at Expo, too.
We have a lot of projects related to Expo. We've been contracted to deliver a number of working robot systems. One of them is a scale model of the Spar Canadarm that has a camera on the end and does a coverage of a space platform with the picture showing up on the monitor that the people can see. There's another project we have for 2 Excalibur robots that we manufacture here that fold and throw paper airplanes. That's for the Canada Pavilion.
And that's not all. The Telecom Pavilion will feature modified robots that will allow kids to experiment with them. The robotics we see at Expo may look like fancy mechano sets, but right now the future looks bright for areas like mining and forestry and even the movies.
Could this be the car of the future? It's being built by UBC Engineering students for the Innovative Vehicle Design Competition at Expo. The model looks great in the wind tunnel, but the real thing still has a way to go. Bruce Hodgins heads up the group.
Our vehicle is a 3-wheeled vehicle, and it's extremely lightweight. We strive for high efficiency in the vehicle. In other words, having low gas consumption as well as lightweight, aerodynamically efficient. The equivalent to gasoline would be about 170 miles to the gallon, we hope. We've used a lot of electronics to control and to monitor all the functions of the vehicle, and we've used extensive sandwich panel construction using a core inside of a fiberglass or Kevlar, which increases the rigidity and reduces weight at the same time. We're using an industrial diesel engine, a 3-cylinder, 600cc Kubota diesel engine, and it's being converted to run on compressed natural gas, CNG, with the diesel. So it has quite a few advantages over the spark ignition engine. A lot of things that have to be worked out as well, though. So it's a very new concept, but we're learning from other people's endeavors on it and trying to develop some things of our own.
By the time July rolls around, the snow will be long gone, and the car will be ready to face the judges. There's $250,000 in scholarships up for grabs, and the competition will come from around the world.
Well, it's certainly a lot of work. It gives us a chance to use some of our engineering principles on a real-world application, and also working together as a team, learning to work with others for a common goal. And I think most of us are quite interested in vehicles in general, so it's sort of a first love anyways, and blending the education of the engineering in it is sort of a bonus for us.
Still to come on World Stage, the foreign press looks at Expo firsthand.
Everybody knows that Gassy Jack Deighton was a well-known character of early Vancouver. Did you know that while he and his wife were prospecting in the Klondike, he developed painful swelling of the feet, So he came to Vancouver and opened a saloon. He kept off his feet by sitting in his saloon and talking a lot, hence the name Gassy Jack.
When you're staging a World's Fair, you need worldwide publicity. One of the best ways to get it is to invite the foreign media to your city and show them what you have to offer. And that's exactly what the Expo folks are doing. Here's Bill Dobson.
More than 30 journalists from places as far away as Brunei, Costa Rica, China, Hungary, Senegal, Singapore, Germany, and Pakistan toured the Expo site this week. I caught up to them at the Canada Pavilion. I wanted to know what professional journalists think about our efforts.
Well, a bit overwhelmed, actually. There's a lot of things to see. I hope we're going to see a lot more tomorrow. We haven't really been all through the fair site yet, but what we've seen so far has been terrific.
I think it's a very, very good project, and it has a great useful value and an informative value.
Marvelous. I must say that, first of all, I like the spectacular achievements. They are ready already 2 months ahead of the actual opening of the Expo 86. The other thing I admire is the enthusiasm of the people, not only those who are, I would say, professionally involved in the thing, but people who are really outsiders, as it were, the volunteers, so many thousands of them. I really envy them for that.
Everything, as it were. I mean, everything is amazing here, and I think it's going to be very successful. I can't wait to come back and see it.
I think that Vancouver has not only from the standpoint of Expo, but Vancouver has a great future as a convention city for some of the major associations and corporations in the United States.
I'm impressed. I've always said that Vancouver was a pretty city, and it certainly is. So I think it will be great, you know, Expo will be great, and that there's so much more potential for after Expo.
While these professional journalists were giving a considered appraisal of our preparations for a fair, there was a different kind of communication going on at Vanier Park. Wayne Cousins spent some time with a group of students from Jameson Elementary School. They've seen Expo taking shape, but are they really into it?
Who here has a pass to go to Expo? Yeah? So do you know what's going to happen at Expo this year?
Well, they're going to talk about transportation and communication and other things.
What other countries do you think are going to be at Expo this year?
I'm not sure.
Do you think the USSR is going to come?
Yes, probably. We have a region.
Who knows what other countries are going to be coming?
Japan. China.
What do you think is going to be in the China Pavilion, for example?
Bamboo building houses.
Uh-huh.
And double-decker buses.
So you think you'll meet some other friends your own age?
Oh, yeah. What about that big thing I saw in the model, that big round ball? What is that?
The big round ball. Do you know what the big round ball is?
No.
You've seen it down at the...
Yeah, it's really neat.
Did you go down to see the movie?
Yeah, and it's really fun. Like, this screen's really big. It's 9 times bigger than a normal movie theater.
So if you could say something to some school children, say who live back east in Toronto, what would you want to say to them?
Come to Expo.
Next week on World Stage 86, Steam Expo, the exciting assembly of steam locomotives being planned for Expo.
We'll go inside the Telecom Pavilion for a preview of the amazing Circle Vision movie about the people of Canada.
We'll go north to check on the progress of a new Haida canoe being carved especially for Expo.
All this and lots more too, including another Expo guide.
We hope you'll make a point of being with us. For World Stage 86, I'm Ramona Mar.
And I'm Wayne Cousins. We'll see you next week.